Hey folks, Chris here. I am in Cedar City still, and I've recorded a couple of videos just of me parking at Walmart and Home Depot. But I wanted to record sort of an in-person video where I talk about the actual process of parking. I have come back from sort of the center of Cedar City. So when I initially got into Cedar City, I parked in a commercial area that actually kind of goes past the center, the old center of Cedar City. And it was great because it had a Walmart and a Home Depot and a Starbucks in my gym and a bunch of other areas. And I had pre-identified, before I got down here on Google Maps, I had pre-identified areas that I thought would be good parking right around those traditional RV parking spaces, because I wanted to test out street parking in addition. And I wanted to pre-identify on Google Maps what those possibly could be, and then actually physically be there to see if what I'm seeing on Google Maps is checking out, in person. So there are a couple of things that I've learned. When you're using Google Maps and you're looking at the map from the top, at least on the computer, Google will tell you if it's got visual data for there with a blue line that'll go through the street. And there's a little person icon that you can drag and drop onto an area you want to look at, and that's called Street View, and it'll zoom up, and so you can see what the street looks like, and you can rotate around and you can look and see what's there. So even from just the map view, you can tend to see where there are certain types of buildings that you want to park next to and certain types of buildings that you want to stay away from. You want to stay away from a lot of residential homes. You just don't want to park in front of people's homes or right next to them. Other areas that you probably want to stay away from are schools. I would just say, for safety reasons, you just don't want to be some strange RV or a van next to a school. In fact, as a side note, I believe down in Southern California, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal talked about, or set a precedence for, the fact that it's unconstitutional to prevent people from living in a vehicle. Prior, the city of Los Angeles and surrounding areas would basically harass people that lived in RVs. And because of a lawsuit, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal said, hey, you can't do that. It's unconstitutional to vaguely prohibit people from living inside of their vehicle. And as a result of that, what happened was the city of Los Angeles had to go back and they had to change basically the rules for what parking was. And so they allow parking down there, but one of the rules that they established was they just didn't want people parking within a certain distance of schools. And I totally get that. I think that's good. They just want to protect the children, and I'm good with that. Okay, so try not to park right near a school. Try not to park where you've got homes on both sides. Now, right now I'm parked in a semi-residential area that's a mixture of a commercial district and some homes, but one of them is kind of an apartment building, and then there are kind of some homes, but I'm not right in the middle of a bunch of homes, okay? So it just happens to be that my gym's parking lot is right here, which is great for me, so I can go to the gym. Now, what you want to try and look for are commercial buildings, and if you can get something on the backside of a commercial building, that's great. A big wall where there are no windows and people are going to be looking in at you. So that's one thing you can look at, and that's something you can very easily identify by the street view on Google Maps. Is you can just pan around and you can look exactly what that looks like, and it'll show you, are there trees that the overhang on your RV are going to hit into, things like that. You want to obviously avoid something that looks kind of shady, an area that you might find some drug dealers. But when I came here to Cedar City, I pre-identified the exact spot that I'm at right now using the Google map. And so that's been good. And I'm getting ready to go down to St. George, and I've already pre-identified a series of areas in St. George that I'm gonna try, that I'm gonna go park at. And this is going to be like areas on the side of a field where there's a good shoulder to pull off onto, or just wide roads that are in obvious industrial areas. or commercial areas. And preferentially, you're not going to be right in the middle of a busy area because you just don't want a lot of people loitering and meandering by the RV. But so far, this has worked out for me. And my experience last night of driving into the downtown Cedar City area and then adjacent to Southern Utah University worked out really well, except for one thing. So I pre-identified this long road that was behind some industrial buildings that serviced Southern Utah University. And it was a very long road. It was very wide, so I felt I could pull off to the side there and I wasn't going to be obstructing traffic. And that worked out really, really well. But the one thing that was an issue was that it was next to the freeway. Now, it was a little bit hard to tell from Google Maps like how far that was, and I would estimate that it was maybe anywhere from 100 yards, or maybe 75 yards. I mean, it was close, but it wasn't like right next to me. But it turns out that the noise from the freeway, primarily from semis going by, it ended up being a bit of an issue. So in the future, if I'm going to look at a big long road, like a frontage road that's maybe right next to a freeway, I might have to reconsider that. But it was generally flat. I did use my leveling blocks, just one level of them, to help out with that. But it was still pretty good. So I did look at a few other areas, and I checked out a few of the areas in Cedar City there on Google Maps, and then I checked them out physically to see how they would work. And I ended up parking in one of them that helped me to sort of calibrate my expectations about a certain type of parking. It was next to a commercial building, a hardware building, but I felt that it was too close to a main type of street right there, and that made me a little bit nervous. So I did do some looking around the area there, and there were some other areas that would have worked for parking that were next to a field, didn't have houses right in front of it, had some commercial buildings that were right there, but it was still relatively close to some areas that I could walk to and I felt seemed fairly safe. But the one thing that's really hard to determine on Google Maps from the street view is the actual street curvature. And that's kind of a bummer, because in an RV you can really feel if something isn't exactly level. And I envy people that have newer RVs that have leveling auto levelers. those would be great. But I've got leveling blocks and I've used them now a couple of times, and they can make a difference. I'm going to do another video right after this where I show some of what I actually found when I was in downtown Cedar City, and specifically at Southern Utah University. I didn't get to do a full exploration, but I got to capture a couple of interesting things. So anyway, thanks for watching.